We are back, and Mr. Danny Dumaresque, we took a break a little early before we got you on, just so we wouldn't have any interruptions, because I know you got a story to tell, and we want to hear about it. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Pete. I certainly appreciate the opportunity. As you know, 6 weeks ago, the commissioners of the Public Utilities Board confirmed me as an intervener in the investigation into the problems of our electrical system.
How does that work, Mr. Dumaresque? How many interveners are there, and what does that allow you to do?
Yes, there's two other interveners at the present time, namely the consumer advocate and the industrial customers, and I am the third. And what this does is it gives me the authority to request information by direct questions to the people involved, the utilities involved, namely Newfoundland, Labrador Hydro, and Newfoundland Power. And these questions then have to be answered for the record. And the people answering the questions certainly can be then called as witnesses, and I can cross-examine them and also call expert advice myself. So that's the process that's underway. And since 6 weeks ago, I've certainly been researching various aspects of the system, although I've been following it for years. But I never thought that I would so quickly come to understand a major issue surrounding the generating station at Holyrood, as I discovered within the past week or so, and certainly it culminated in my press conference today to let the people of the province know for the first time, by the way, that when Mr. Martin and the Premier came out in early part of this year and said that our system was a result of older equipment and that, we had colder winter than we expected, I mean, at no point did they ever mention the fact that Hydro took possession of over $100 million worth of dirty fuel knowingly. I mean, they entered into a contract with a company knowing that they would be delivering that first fuel in January, the two most important months of the year, the two most demanding months of the year for our citizens, and they never bothered to put a critical component of the fuel in the contract specifications, namely the presence of heavy metals, silicon and aluminum, and not only that, they never followed a testing protocol, so the product never got tested before it left its source, and it also never got tested and analyzed when it got discharged. And obviously it led us to tremendous problems at the Holyrood generating station, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions on any of the specifics that you have.
Well, you've got a lot of numbers here, and obviously we don't want to get too complicated about it, but essentially you're saying they started to take oil from this new company. Is it Trafigura?
Yes, Trafigura SA, which is basically a trading company, right, with its head office in Switzerland. And I also pointed out that just a quick Google search of that company shows them with less than a reputable resume. I mean, they're involved in a lot of scandals in the different parts of the world, including having to pay $200 million for dumping toxic waste in an African country, and being involved in the oil for food scandal in Iraq, and so that's what happened. That company was given the contract on November the 19th, 2012.
Any idea why? Any idea why the change in supplier?
Well, they said they decided to go to public tender because the tender of the previous company, which by the way was ConocoPhillips, which is an internationally recognized multinational U.S. corporation, the fifth largest refiner of oil in the world. That's who did supply Holyrood for the previous 5 years. But instead of looking at them because everything was fine, in an affidavit, sworn affidavit to the PUB, the Vice President of Nalcor, Mr. Anderson, stipulates they had no issues leading up to the supply of new fuel. But certainly they do admit that when they were looking at putting out the tender, they were wondering about putting in a maximum level of aluminum and silicon, because they knew that these were very damaging properties if they showed up in any kind of significant form in the fuel.
Okay, so they're going to a new supplier at a critical time of year. They, I suppose, wouldn't have necessarily any indication that there would be a problem, but obviously it's prudent to test and make sure that you're getting what you expect you're getting, and it doesn't have more than an acceptable amount of this aluminum and silicon.
Right.
They don't do that, according to your information here, and subsequent to finding out that they have a product which has too high levels of these two, they continue to receive it, and your contention is that all of this has something to do with the problems we know to have happened at Holyrood starting in January of 2013 and continuing up to the critical situation we had here this January.
Yes, absolutely. And as I said now, just to be clear, the first shipment arrived on January the 4th, around 220,000 barrels, and that was put into the system. And a week later, the unexpected happened. For the first time in history, we had a generator of 175 megawatts of power imploded, and of course, it put us into a tremendous negative, terrible situation for our citizens of the province. We found ourselves without power for many, many hours in a raging storm, and of course, people, I don't know. I haven't got the 2 plus 2 equals 4 at this stage in the game, what caused and effect there was. But I also note in a sworn affidavit by the Vice President of Nalcor, on page 14, it says, a loss of fuel supplied to the boiler because of a plug strainer would result in the unit tripping and the loss of 175 megawatts of power. And I also have emails. For example, this email dated the 8th of February from Nalcor's manager to the company in Houston, Texas, and it says, Karen, as indicated previously, so they already told them about it. But as indicated previously, we are having operational issues at our Holyrood generating station, which we believe are a result of higher concentration of aluminum and silica in recent shipments of number 6 fuel. To what extent possible, we're looking to reduce these concentrations in the next shipments. But later on that day, they said to the company in another email, though not pleased about it, Newfoundland Hydro will accept this segregated load for delivery, and there was 2 more delivered on the 16th and 26th of February, which were found later to also contain very high levels of aluminum and silicon.
Okay, now I'm just going to go through some of those numbers. The analysis of the first shipment was 30 parts per million, which is twice the limit you indicate. The second had a count of 376 parts per million, which is 25 times the maximum limit. And then the ones subsequent to that on February 16th and 26th, as you say, 2 to 5 times higher than the acceptable limit, 35 parts per million and 82 parts per million. But all of that pales in comparison to the sample from the day tank in June, which is 2,348 parts per million, or 500 times the maximum acceptable level.
Yes, absolutely. These are not my figures. These are the figures that I have with certificates of inspection done by laboratory on these samples. And just for your information, the day tank is, the way the setup is at Holyrood, we have 4 big tanks which take about 220,000 barrels of fuel, and each of these 4 tanks then, they feed into a smaller tank which is 4,000 barrels of fuel, and that day tank is the intermediate between the bulk from the 4 tanks, and that tank then feeds all of the connections to the 3 major generators, and there's 490 megawatts of power. Without this power supply, there is absolutely no way that we can keep any power to thousands of households on the Avalon Peninsula in particular. So it's obviously it's absolutely critical that we keep this place going. And as I also indicated today, rather than follow the protocol of having this oil tested before it left the site, we don't know where it was, in Africa or Russia, we don't know where. But there was no testing done before it left, and if they took samples, they say in a sworn testimony that the reason they didn't have the analysis is because it would take 3 to 4 weeks to get it done. However, I have called and talked to different labs, and I have written confirmation, and it's certain common knowledge in the industry, but I have written confirmation that tests for aluminum and silica can be done within 8 hours of receiving the sample.
Well, presumably if they don't have it tested, if they don't have that answer before it leaves its shipping point, then once they get it here, they really don't have much of an option because they have to keep the generators going, just keep supplying the power, or they're waiting for an extended period of time to get more oil. Isn't that the case?
I guess, Pete, pardon the pun, but they really had us over a barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, here we were with a deep freeze, a raging storm, and here we are with that continuing for January and February, and we had no choice. We had to tell them to keep it coming because there was no other fuel to keep her going. Okay, so just to, we got to end this very shortly now, but you smell a rat in the fact that the information hasn't come forward until now. And also, the question I have is, isn't this something that the PUB should be informed about? When did they know? Yes, well, that's the other issue. The PUB was informed in December when Hydro came looking for money. Hydro came looking to the Public Utilities Board because they had already spent over $15 million fixing up the generator that imploded. They now came forward looking for over $1 million because they were replacing valves and cleaning tanks and cleaning filters and replacing pumps and doing everything between the time that the people have to remember now, the fuel that was brought in wasn't all used during the winter, so it was sitting there because the units at Holyrood are shut down from April basically until November. So they were using all this time to and taking away time and things they should have done on regular maintenance, and they were putting all this attention into there, but they spent over $1 million replacing all of these parts that they could, but in my estimation, all they did was remove part of the cancer. This particular infiltration of the system had now gone right through the system, and it was still sitting in the tanks, and it was still being accumulating in the lines, and also the burner nozzles, which is the ones that regulate the temperature of the boilers. But when was it that they came looking for the money, that the PUB would finally find out what was going on here with the fuel? The application was deposited on the 5th of December last year, but it wasn't until the end of January that questions got answered, and I don't think it was until the 26th of February that the board issued an order denying them the right to claim that money back on the backs of the ratepayer. And the other interesting thing about this, Pete, is that the contract was almost a great sweetheart deal, because the contract said that when the fuel got passed over at the point of delivery, the supplier was no longer responsible for anything. And as a matter of fact, in a direct question from the Public Utilities Board asking them, well, why didn't you get this money recovered from this company? And the answer, it says, Hydro has not sought compensation from Trafigura AG as a result of the damages caused by the fuel oil, as the contract conditions were not violated. I mean, this is unbelievable that you would write up a contract not putting the specifications for a very serious contamination in the case of metals. You would issue the contract knowing the fuel was coming in at the worst possible time. You would not do any analysis. You had the system was totally corrupted by the end of January, and then you turned around and said, send me more.
Okay.
And we're still doing business with this company. That's what galls me today. I mean, we have a contract, Section 16, that says you can give them 60 days notice and get somebody else, and that's exactly what we should be doing now. Now that we're having less reliance on Holyrood and soon we'll have it closed down for the season, we should be giving notice now. Cancel the contract, get back and talk to ConocoPhillips or somebody that gave us clean fuel for years and years, and get back this essential integrity into our system and give people some confidence that next winter this company is not going to dump us more garbage.
All right, Mr. Dumaresque, we're going to have to leave it there. You've raised an awful lot of questions. You've exposed a lot of insight, so we'll see now what comes back from the interested parties on the other side, but I really thank you for your time today. It's a fascinating look inside, and I guess it gives everybody a lot of questions as to what's going on and why.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it, and I certainly, as an intervener with the Public Utilities Board, I will continue to ask these questions, and I look forward to having testimony under oath so that we can finally get to the cause of this fiasco and try to put some confidence back into our system.
All right, sir. Never a dull moment.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Danny Dumaresque there with an expose today on what he's found as that intervener, and he gets to ask some questions to get information that perhaps he wouldn't have otherwise, and this is all very interesting.